Finally, TV.
I first discovered that I wanted to be a writer, a full-time professional writer, the day I graduated from college. And that's partly because I didn't have any other job, and the only thing I really liked to do was write. But it did pose something of a problem when you come home and say to your parents after all that money gone for education, I want to be a writer. Because everybody knows, writers don't make any money. Lots of people, when they ask me about where my ideas come from, I have a kind of pat answer, and I say, well, they just turn up when I need them. But it's really a little more complicated than that, and it has to do with the notions we have of talent. I'm not so certain that talent is the right word so much for a writer or a painter, at least, as imagination. And what I have is a full-bore imagination that runs like the tide in and out of the Bay of Fundy. It just goes 24 hours a day, and along with that, over the years, I've just collected information. All writers have junkyards for brains anyway. And what the imagination does is allow me to connect between what would otherwise be strangely disparate pieces of information that wouldn't seem to fit together. But when I'm writing, I can pull these things up when I need them. So literally, they do turn up when I need them. And of course, every writer wonders how long that'll last, and shucks, it's lasted 45 years. I think it'll probably last a while longer. When I'm ready to actually begin writing a book, it's a very strange process. I don't always know I'm ready. I can be working on one book and go out and sit down in my office, boot up the computer, light my pipe, have a drink of coffee, and suddenly I'm working on a different book, out of nowhere. And I have no idea where that comes from or why, but I've learned over time not to question that. I'm not a terribly compulsive person, so it's easy for me to make that call. I just get on my horse and chase it and see where it goes, see where it leads. Donald Hall, the poet laureate from New Hampshire, once said that writing is an act of discovery, and he was absolutely right about that. And I just kind of follow it to maybe even a greater degree. So the truth is, I just sit down, start at the computer, and start. And sometimes I work on a book that I've been working on for a while, or sometimes it comes out of nowhere. Good example is the book, the One-Legged Man Who Came Out of a Well. That started as a title that occurred to me over breakfast one morning, and I wrote it down because I liked the way it sounded. I took it out, typed it out, pasted it to my lampshade, and it sat there for over a year. And one morning I came out and I sat down and booted up the computer, did the same routine, looked at that piece of paper, and I said, I know what the book is. And I started writing it. It's hard to explain how these things work. And, I'm the least person in the world to describe anything to genius. It has nothing to do with that. For me, it's imagination. That's what drives it. I'm often asked by people, how do I get started? How do I write a book? And there really is no simple answer. You got to put in time. You have to anchor yourself to a particular piece of time each day. I normally start around 7:15, 7:30 in the morning and write till noon. Even if you can find an hour, an uninterrupted hour, where you don't answer the phone and you don't answer the door for an hour, you can begin to shape a book. But there's a lot of practice involved in the technical business of constructing a full-length novel. Some people use outlines. Some writers use huge outlines. John Steinbeck used to write with a pile of paper on either side of the typewriter. And because the book kept changing as he went, and there were things he wanted to be certain he added in later chapters, on the right-hand pile of paper he made notes for that. And then because every time you put something in a book, you change what may have happened in earlier chapters, he would put those notes on the left-hand side, and when he'd finished the first draft, he'd then go through and correlate all that and begin to put it together. Getting the book on paper, these days, it's really easy because of the computer. You can get a whole lot of words on paper. They may not mean anything, and you may not be a terribly good writer. A lot of that is learning the basic craft of writing. And that means writing and writing and writing and writing and not worrying about whether you're going to sell a word of it. First, you have to write. People often want to know what kind of a place I work in. And place is important for a writer. I've got a little office that's about 56 feet 7 inches from the house. It's 8 by 11 on the inside. It does have a telephone, which I tend not to answer. It's a fairly quiet place. I live in the country. The biggest noises I get are dogs barking and an occasional car going by on the road, plane overhead. Every now and then a flock of turkeys goes by. But that really doesn't matter to me, because when I started writing, I began as a newspaper reporter working in a newsroom full of old mechanical typewriters. And the noise was incredible. You learned very quickly to concentrate over the noise. You just shut it out. It sounds like a hard thing to do, but in a room like that, it's really rather easy to shut out the noise, because the noise doesn't define itself so easily. When I'm alone out in my office, noises are quite specific, and they can cut into my concentration, but it doesn't last. Concentration just overwhelms it, and I go back to where I was, and I'm gone. And that concentration, it's a matter of practice, developing it. As I've worked at it over the years, I find that even if I answer the telephone, if I don't make a note, I won't remember that the phone rang when I finish writing that morning. Or I won't remember conversations if somebody drops by, because my mind has not left the book. It's still there, it's still working, it's still going. So some people write with music in the background. When I play music, I sit and listen to music. I hate background music. It gets in my way.